Good evening and welcome to the Sunshine meeting of the Terre Haute City Council. It's Thursday, March 2nd at 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Aller. Present. Councilman Azar.
Present.
Councilwoman Crossan. Present. Councilman Devon.
Here.
Councilman Elliott.
Here.
Councilman Garrison.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Nasser.
Present.
Councilman Nation. 8 are present, 1 is absent.
Okay. The purpose of our meeting this evening is more of a fact-finding session. We won't be having any votes this evening or have any action. If you want to know what is on our agenda, they're up here on the pew. You'll have an opportunity to speak only on agenda items. Anything that's not on the agenda, you won't be able to speak until our regular meeting next week when we allow 30 minutes for public comments. That being said, first order of business, please.
General Ordinance 1, 2017, amending City Code, Chapter 7, Article 3, Fire Prevention Code, and Chapter 2, Article 9, Funds and Fiscal Procedure. Previously tabled, and you did receive the proposed amendment last month.
The petitioner that would like to speak on General Ordinance 1, 2017.
Mr. President, members of council, Jeff Fisher, Fire Chief. We are asking that General Ordinance 1, 2017 be withdrawn.
All right, thank you. Anybody from the public that'd like to speak on General Ordinance 1, 2017? Council? Next order of business, please, Michelle.
General Ordinance 2, 2017, amending City Code, Chapter 7, Article 3, Fire Prevention Code, and Chapter 2, Article 9, Funds and Fiscal Procedures.
Petitioner to speak on this, please.
Mr. President, members of council, Jeff Fisher, Fire Chief. The reason we asked to withdraw Ordinance 1 is because of this new ordinance. We rewrote some of the things in there at the request of some of the council members. I'll let Assistant Chief Loudermilk speak on that, but I just want to clear up a misunderstanding that we had at last month's meeting regarding this. I believe Assistant Chief Loudermilk forwarded you an email. I hope you all received that, an email from our district fire marshal. He misquoted when he talked to a few of you about the authorization by local fire departments. With that, what he quoted was volunteer fire departments, which is IC code 36817.8A. This does not refer to the Terre Haute Fire Department. The one he quoted to you was, it says it may engage in an inspection program, but that is for departments serving an area without include a city. The one we go under is IC code 36817.8B. States that the fire department serving an area includes a city shall inspect every place in public within the jurisdiction of the city. So there was some misunderstanding there, and I just wanted to clear that up. So with that, I will defer to Assistant Chief Loudermilk because he's been working on this ordinance for a little over 10 months.
Real quick, Chief, did you forward that email also to Michelle so she can post that online for council correspondence? If not, could you do so, please?
I don't know if I did. I don't remember.
If you could. Okay.
If we haven't, we will.
All right, thank you.
So I will defer to Chief Loudermilk.
Mr. President, members of the council, Norm Loudermilk, Assistant Fire Chief in charge of the Fire Prevention, Inspection, Investigation Division. So what we did, we took all the suggestions that you guys had at the last meeting and through meetings that we'd had with you prior, some of your concerns, and went to city legal, asked that the ordinance be amended. They felt that it was easier to withdraw it and introduce a new ordinance. So I just want to go over the changes with you. They're not extensive, but I think that they are important, and hopefully they will satisfy some of what your concerns were. I really wish these ordinances were numbered in pages so you could refer to a page number. But I guess the first thing that's really changed is going to be probably the 5th or 6th page back It's under section 97, Enforcement of Fire Prevention Code. And it goes on down to section D, which I think may appear at the top of your page. And it's what Todd wanted, Councilman Nation. The fire chief shall compile an annual report for the activities and financial status as they relate to the fire prevention code. This report shall be presented to the city council no later than March 15th the following year. So we had stricken some of the language that talked about, in the 1962 ordinance, it talked about reporting to the council, making a report about the financial activity, or strike that rather, all the activity that the division was involved in. And so this will put that in there so that whatever we do the previous year, by March of the following year, we'll be able to give you almost a state of the city address about our division. How many fires we've investigated, what types of fires, how many public prevention programs we're involved in, the types, investigations and inspections we've been involved in, and then, of course, the money we've brought in or we've spent. Of course, you'll know what we spend, because obviously everything you do will be approved in the budget. So that's has been changed. 4 paragraphs later on EH, it's pretty important because most, if not all, of the resistance that I've heard has been with apartment owners. They have not been used to getting inspected. We weren't aware that they should have been. So, but they fall under Class 1 structures definitions. So we discussed this, and the fire chief determined that there's a part of the law that allows you to eliminate a class of structures from inspections if it's best served in the interest of public safety. So you can imagine an apartment building where you walk in and have a 6x6 area or a 10x10 area and 4 apartments coming off of it. There's nothing we would inspect but the common area. So the amount of time that it would take for us to generate an inspection report, bill this person, email this person, find the owner, have them meet us there, go over the inspection report, look for violations, it really isn't worth it. And it's not worth it, not because it's a safety factor, but because we don't have fires in common areas, where we have our fires in the apartments themselves, and we can't inspect those anyway. So it doesn't serve anybody any good to charge somebody $25 for a 10x10 inspection that we weren't ever doing before, that we don't see the need to inspect because we're not having any trouble there. If we were having a lot of common area fires and a lot of issues with code violations in common areas of apartment buildings, that'd be one thing, but we don't. So what the chief has done is eliminated that. And as you see from that paragraph, it just says the chief or designee shall conduct fire inspections of Class 1 structures, with the exception of Class 1 structures defined as R2 apartment houses. Now, remember, the R2 isn't your zoning. It is the International Fire Code's definition, okay? So that's what we're talking about. It's not what you guys think R2 is as a zoning requirement. It's what R2 is as an occupancy. We have different occupancies, M, I, R, A for assembly, so based on what the International Fire Code, R2s are apartment houses, and we would eliminate those from inspection. So apartment owners seem to be happy with that. Obviously, they don't have to worry about inspections. We're happy with it because we're busy enough. We don't need to add on all of those extra buildings. So that's a big part of the change from the ordinance in January till now. And then the language below that just talks about inspecting non-exempt, all Class 1 structures that are non-exempt, because the exempt ones are the apartment houses. So we would still inspect all the other Class 1 structures, just not apartments. Then if you go all the way back, there's no other changes except for towards the very end, probably the 4th page from the end, which is the fees for inspections. And so this was brought to my attention by Mr. Elliott, which we obviously knew, but just didn't really know what to do about it. And so what we've done is we've kind of stair-stepped this up, made a graduated scale. It seems more fair that way, it seems more logical, and so we've also reduced the cap. So the initial inspection of anything less than 5,000 square feet would be $25. That's different than the other ordinance slightly. And then from 5,001 to 7,500 would be $35. From 7,500 to 10,000 would be $45. And then 10,000 square feet would be $50, or I'm sorry, $55, with a maximum of 550 instead of the maximum of 2,500. That just gives 10 buildings. So if a corporation, whomever they are, may own 10 buildings that exceed 10,000 square feet, the maximum they would pay is 550. So the total amount was obviously reduced significantly. We stair-stepped it up to try to make it more fair. Before, I think it was like $25 for less than 10,000 square feet, but if you had more than 10,000 square feet, it jumped all the way to $200. So we've really lowered that down to where the amount of inspection fee is much less than what it was in the previous ordinance. Probably, I would say, and I don't have any way to judge this except from my own experience, that probably 85% or more of the business are in that first category, which is the $25 inspection, or the smaller inspections. The other thing that was left off of the first ordinance, just because it was left off and we couldn't add it because it was an increase, I couldn't ask for an amendment. When this was refiled, I asked that they put it in there, and that was the very last line of the fee schedule on that first box, which is fire reports. We don't charge for any of our fire reports, either our investigation reports or our fire run reports. And what's important about that is that we're missing out. This is a check that I have from an insurance company for $35. They just sent it to me because they wanted a copy of a report, because everybody else does it, so they assumed that we did it too. I can't cash this because we don't have an ordinance that lets me charge. So I saved it for this meeting to be able to show you that, we can't charge for this. This is money we're not getting. We still have to use manpower to generate the report, to copy the report, to mail the report. And the way that our system is now, if someone requests a report, it has to go to state legal, make sure there's no personal information, it has to be redacted, and then they send the report out. So there's some man hours involved in it, and we're not getting a dime for that. And that's from these insurance companies or fire investigation companies that want copies. Obviously, inspection reports we would not give charge for, if it didn't say inspections, and they would get that free emailed to them after we conduct our inspection. This would only be for fire runs or for fire investigation reports. So that's it. That's really the only, I'm sorry, I misspoke. At the very end, on the next to last page, all we did was on number D, under section 2, 123, just added a phrase, any and all investigation activities. So all that means is the original ordinance said that we would spend the money that was generated on the enforcement of this ordinance. Well, the enforcement of this ordinance deals with inspections. But our division does really three main goals, if you remember: prevention, inspections, and investigation. And this money is necessary for all three of those jobs. So we wanted to be able to make sure that we could use it for inspections, to buy investigation materials we've already talked about and pretty extensively, and for the prevention material. So that's it. That's we've discussed this ordinance a lot, so if there's other questions about it, I'll be happy to answer them, or if you have specific questions about the changes, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the public that'd like to speak on General Ordinance 2, 2017? Council?
Sure.
Councilman Garrison.
Last question. Norm, could you tell me a little bit about the chain of command on how this new system will work? Where you've got the fire chief, Fisher at the top, and then your assistant chief, so you're under that, and then will you be pretty much the director of this new group?
Well, it's not new, but yes, the new group isn't new. Has always been an inspection division. It's simply 3 people that are assigned as a fire marshal. They do inspections, prevention, and investigations. they would work for me. I'm in charge of that division. What I see myself doing now, more than the inspections, is a lot of the plan review. Matter of fact, that's more of what I'm busy than anything else. I didn't realize it, but there's a lot of growth in our community. Regardless of what some of the things that we read in media, I can attest to the fact that there are a lot of buildings being built and a lot of businesses coming here. Now, they're not the Toyota factories that we'd like to have, but I'm telling you, there's something going on because I'm approving those fire protection plans. I'm looking at those blueprints. I'm approving the sprinkler plans, and I'm going out and inspecting and doing final inspections on occupancies of businesses that are coming here. And they may be small, but they're still coming here. A couple new ones are in the Kmart Plaza out on 46 is growing like crazy. There's some new businesses out there. Downtown is being remodeled. And so I am lucky that I'm able to get on that front end of knowing that we are experiencing some growth. Maybe not in the measure that we'd like to, but there's growth coming here. So I do a lot of pre-plans, or not pre-plan, plan review. And then the people that work for me do inspections every day unless there's a fire. And if there's a fire, they break from their inspections, they go investigate the fire. That's kind of a big deal, so they stay with that until the fire is done and being investigated. If it's criminal activity involved, like an arson, generally we all work together. We want to get that thing solved. If it's not, it's a fire, maybe accidental or electrical, something like that, then they work that fire on their own. And then if there's a prevention program, then whoever's on call for that week, that would take like late night calls out on a fire, they would be in charge of conducting that and prevention program that day. So I may go and help or supervise or make sure they're okay, but other than that, those guys, they do all the work.
Now, the three that are going to help you, are they existing firefighters now?
Yes, there's no increase.
And so if they're doing that, I think we talked about this last month, would there be any new hires for this division? And you're taking existing people, but will that take people away from, what do you call it, the company?
No.
We'll have to replace those
No, not at all.
as new rookies?
No, and this division has been operating like this for years. Then they went back and go,
The reason they're not taking any spots away from out of the firehouse is because under Chief Utes, when he became chief, he redesigned the inspection, the IPI is what we call it, that division. He took a guy for every shift, and then his only job was to do inspections and investigate fires. So what I did is reorganize it. I took those three guys that were on company, which were doing that job already. They were not doing firefighter jobs. They moved to the front office, so this is strictly what they do, 8 to 4, unless there's a fire after 4 o'clock, then when it's on call, does the investigation.
Okay, so in theory, it wouldn't affect overtime either?
No.
Okay.
And the good thing about this, too, if that guy was on company, and for whatever reason he was on vacation or took a personal day and called in sick, I would have to replace him on company. I don't have to replace him up in the front office.
Sure.
Because I got two other guys doing the same job.
Okay, thanks. Norm, I guess one more question. I was looking at this estimated revenue and then your list of expenses.
oh,
It looks like your revenue is probably going to drop since you're making some revisions. But the expenses at the top of this list, you've got vehicles 3 at $36,000. Can you talk about that a little bit?
yeah. I was just throwing everything I could think of. I was asked by Mr. Elliott to tell me, if you have this, what are things you would spend them on? And the first thing that I could think of was our vehicles, only because our vehicles are in not the best shape. They're 2007. They've got well over 100-some thousand miles. They're used on emergency runs. They're used, and this is not a go here and sit for a while. This is go to a business, get out, and get back in, go to another business, get out, and get back in. They're in and out of their vehicles. I wish we could have a door counter that could tell you how often they're in and out of their vehicles. Many of the vehicles have new engines or new transmission. That's the amount of maintenance in them sometimes isn't really worth it. So as I wrote down everything I could think of that Mr. Elliott wanted, or that we would use in our division, it'd be vehicles. Now, does that mean that that's what's going to happen? No, because I still work for somebody, and if he says that we're not going to buy vehicles, we're not going to buy vehicles. I can tell you what we desperately need. We need things like respirators for our fire investigators. We need Nomex coveralls for them to wear inside of fires after it's over with, so that they can dig out a fire without wearing their turnout gear.
Right.
So I just put everything on there. That's not to say, and that's really my fault, and I apologize for it. I probably shouldn't put vehicles. I just looked at everything that we would need, from a trowel that you dig out a fire with, to crime scene tape, to,
So this is just more of a wish list, what you like to have?
yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay. That's all I have.
I mean, some of that's a need list, Mr. Garrison, but some of it's also a wish list.
Councilman Morris.
Norm, on average, how many inspections you do a week, just ballpark?
In a week?
Yeah.
In 2015, they averaged about 2.7 inspections a day.
A day.
My guys are averaging about 10 a day now.
Okay.
That's 10 per person.
Thank you. Are you?
So we're increasing our inspections about threefold. And the reason is because the way their work schedule was. If a person worked on a Sunday, and then they worked on a Wednesday, and then they worked on a Saturday, then they would only inspect during the work week, because that's when most businesses were open. So you only got inspections out of them from 8 to 4 on that Wednesday. So out of a 5-day work week, the productivity for inspections was only a short, very small window. Where now that they're on a day shift schedule, all 3 of the inspectors are able to devote full-time work to doing inspections every day, minus the paperwork or the, follow up with investigations or with prevention programs.
Thank you. Are you?
Councilman Elliott.
Is there anything in here that talks about the contents of this annual report that we're going to get?
No. No, it doesn't. It's just, well, it says annual report for all activities and the financial status as they relate to the fire prevention code. So I'm assuming it would be all of like inspections, and we can amend that. That's not I don't think that's a deal breaker to.
It would make sense to me if we knew of the inspections performed in a year's time, how many had a finding, I'll call it a finding or a issue.
Deficiency.
Deficiency.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, I don't know if those deficiencies can kind of be summarized by a class of deficiency. You know, was it this type of what type of a problem was it, the deficiency?
I can answer that.
The reason I asked that is, you sent me the summary of the fires, and there were like, 227 of them are arson. I don't know that your deficiencies are going to be related to arson unless you see something that, somebody could pretty easily cause a problem here related to this, but I don't know that would meet to be a deficiency. And then one of the other categories was electrical. I mean, do you ever cite any electrical issues in these reports?
Cite them like
Not cite, but I mean, have a report of deficiency for an electrical.
Yes. First, I want to talk. We need to separate these. As an inspection, I'd love to give you information, and our software will be able to provide that for you about what type of violation it was. Was it a life safety violation, or was it an exit sign that was burnt out? Did they not have the sprinkler system working and still allow people to be in there? So those types of things I could break down for you.
Yeah.
Investigations, I could break down into 4 categories. And those are the causes: accidental, intentional, which is called incendiary, unknown, or natural.
I'm not as interested in the latter as I am the former.
Sure, I understand.
So what you're seeing to try to prevent the need for the latter.
Right. Yeah, and that's what the whole point is if you prevent, if you can keep people from putting surge protectors on top of each other in a daisy chain, then maybe we won't have a fire at that location the next night. So that's what the whole purpose is prevention. That's what this all goes back to. Teaching little kids to stop, rock, and roll may prevent them from being injured. Or teaching kids to dial 911 or push a smoke alarm and test it may prevent a bigger fire or prevent death. And so that's why it all relates to that prevention thing. So yes, I can report whatever you want.
But the frequency and some sort of classification of the deficiencies I think would be useful to have in that. And then over time, as you go back to these places, you hope there would be a lower deficiency rate down the road.
Yes. You would hope that,
And I mean, that's how you measure, I think that's how you measure the outcome of having this.
yeah, you measure your
inspection
productivity
program.
by doing that, absolutely.
I yield.
Just to follow up on that, I can assure you that you will get a good report. Every year, I ask my department heads to give me a summary of the prior year, because the mayor has the state of city address. He sends me 2 or 3 pages of things on there, and I have to take a couple paragraphs and forward it on to the mayor, because the mayor only uses 1 slide for departments. So I guarantee you'll have a lot of information to sift
We
through.
just
it.
want to be able to, I think, measure over time.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's a good idea too, because this is televised, and when people see this, they'll see what kind of, I don't want to say infractions or issues are out there in these businesses, but they'll know they're being taken care of. Councilwoman Crossman.
In that same kind of vein, is there something that somewhere, I mean, obviously they go to the fire code or have their attorneys go to the fire code if they have one, but I saw you carrying it that one night, it's huge, huge document. Is there somewhere where a small business owner could go to find out the basic kinds of requirements that would be made for them even prior to being inspected?
So, I wanted to pass this out, can I? Sure. So as an example, this is what the city engineer's office and what we'd like to put on our website to be able to have. This is only one small aspect. This is the new construction or the remodeled construction, but if someone were to say, well, what kind of inspections are we required to have, or who am I supposed to get a hold of, or, I don't know what to do. Now, if you're a big architect or a builder, you know what to do. But if you're like Todd or Mr. Nason was talking about, where he had done some remodeling on his own and still had to get some design release from the state, and he wasn't sure how this is going to change. This just shows them that the fire department's going to be involved in this now. They always were supposed to be. We just kind of dropped the ball. So this will give them an idea of what they're supposed to, kind of look out for. As far as what a small business owner would ask for, there are some websites I've looked at where they give a frequently asked questions, and they list some things like exit signs or fire extinguishers, or not blocking the exits, or, not having, too many cords plugged into an outlet, those types of things. But what's great about our program is with the initial inspection, we don't shut you down. We work with you to get your things fixed. So it's more of an awareness than it is a stoppage process. We would come out. If someone says, hey, listen, I've not been inspected for a while, can you come out, just make sure I'm good? I'd sure like to have that to give to my insurance company to let them know that I'm okay. Then, yeah, we come out. We should have already got you, but if we didn't, we would come out, conduct an inspection, do a walkthrough, give you an opportunity to take care of things you need to get taken care of, and then end it. A lot of our inspections are as a result of fires. There was some talk on TV recently about the police department. That wasn't done to hurt anybody. There was a fire at the police department outside. Some material from smoking was discarded improperly, whether it was from an employee there or from someone who showed up to get a report. We don't know. But there was a mulch fire outside. And when we went inside to make sure there was no fire extensions, that there was no more smoke in the building, we noticed a few things that were deficient. So we inspected the building, which had never been done and is required. All except for federal buildings are required. So the jail we inspect. We've already inspected that this year. The juvenile center we inspected, but we didn't even inspect our own police station. So while we were there, we made the inspection, made the chief aware of what the problems were. Of course, the media went with it, which they always do. But what we got done was we got brand-new exit signs put up. We got some of the safety issues taken care of with respect to some stuff that was in the basement that shouldn't have been there. And so everything's good. And, people plug their stuff in different places. But if you want to know about what to do, if anybody would call our department, we would send an investigator out there and have them meet with them and talk to them about it. But I don't have really a list.
Thank you.
Thanks, Norm. Next order of business, please.
Special Ordinance 8, 2017, vacating a portion of Carl Avenue commonly located by 2800 North 6.5 Street. No problems were noted.
Is there a petitioner that would like to speak on Special Ordinance 8, 2017? Hello?
Hi, my name is Nancy Haddix, and I live at 2800 North 6.5 Street, and my neighbor and I are asking to have part of Carl Avenue vacated. It lies in between both of our properties. I've lived there for 16 years, and this section of Carl Avenue has never been opened. It just has grass on it growing. We have maintained this land for many years, and we would ask to have this ordinance approved so we can continue to make it officially part of our properties. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Is there anybody from the public that'd like to speak on Special Ordinance 8, 2017? Council?
Yeah, I would just add that I got a chance to go out and visit with Nancy and look at the area, and I think there are some other areas there too that for some reason they were drawn up that way, but they're not currently being used. But you wouldn't know there was any issue there at all, and particularly when you've got two neighbors that agree on that. There's no risk to firefighters, getting into that area or anything like that. It seemed like an easy thing to approve.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next order of business, please.
Special Ordinance 9, 2017, rezoning of property located at 825 South 7th Street. Area Plan gave a favorable recommendation, and you will have a proposed amendment.
Is there a petitioner that speak on Special Ordinance 9, 2017?
Yes, my name is Dave Frederick, and I represent Bonnie Bollinger, the homeowner in this particular situation. As you indicated, Ms. Bollinger lives at 825 South 7th Street. This is a property located about a block south of the old Simrose location. Ms. Bollinger purchased this property in 2015. She's been a long-time professor, teacher at Ivy Tech, specializing in business, and one of the classes she taught is entrepreneurship. So she wanted to strike out on her own and use this single-family home to use a couple of rooms on the first floor to have a small women's boutique. And it would only be open on the weekends for limited periods of time. This is in the Farrington Grove neighborhood, and one of the things that Ms. Bollinger and I did before we filed this particular petition and this ordinance was to meet with the Farrington Grove Association. We did that back in October and got a favorable recommendation with them. Their biggest concerns were there were going to be no changes to the exterior of the home. All Ms. Bollinger has done since she's purchased is try to upgrade it, but there will be no changes either the interior or exterior to this particular property. We had also met with the city several times to talk about parking issues, which is why we went from October until now to file this. The city, in working with Area Plan as well, indicated that a variance should be granted that try to put any parking on site would not be in the best interest of the neighborhood. So those are probably two main things. Does Farrington Grove have any objections? It's our understanding when we met with them in October that they do not, and that the Area Plan believed there was sufficient parking along 7th Street and then on the property just to the south, which would be Park Street, that if there would be people there to visit and to shop, that there would be plenty of parking.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on Special Ordinance 9, 2017?
Hi, Ben Lindeman, 87 Allendale. I'd just like to say I've met Bonnie personally a couple times. She's wonderful, and I think this is a positive advancement for the neighborhood. That's all.
Thank you. Anybody else? Council? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next order of business, please.
Special Ordinance 11, 2017, authorizing the issuance of economic development solid waste facility revenue bonds.
Oh, we got three of them coming. Hi, petitioner to speak on this, please.
Yeah, good evening. Steve Witt, Department of Redevelopment and Terre Haute Economic Development Corporation. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Tom Redd. Tom is the CEO of Pyrex USA. This is a new manufacturing company considering a new site in the Fort Harrison Business Park. And we've been working with Tom since last summer. This is a $25 million project that will create 55 new jobs at an average wage of $19 per hour. And I thought I would have Tom introduce himself to you and then tell you a little bit about his company and what their plans are.
Great. Thank you. Good evening. Tom Redd with Pyrex USA. We're happy to be looking at the city of Terre Haute for our new facility. What we do is we recycle scrap rubber from tires, and we turn that into raw materials for rubber and plastics manufacturing. Terre Haute is a very good location for us because of the strong plastics industry in and around the region, as well as a good transportation infrastructure. As Steve said, our plant will employ 55 workers at an average wage of $19 an hour, $32.50 including benefits. The total capital investment into the plant is approximately $25 million. A little background on the company. It's a joint venture of an American firm and a German firm. The recycling technology is actually coming from Purolix, the German firm that has a plant outside of Berlin. Very high-tech process, very clean process. There are no scrap tires associated with the factory facility itself. We purchase scrap tires after they've already been shredded and reduced in size. We're excited about being located here and look forward to working with the city, the state, and everybody in the region. Thank you. And I'd also like to introduce Kirk Grable from Barnes & Thornburg in Indianapolis, and he's working with us on the industrial revenue bonds that will be financing the bulk of the facility.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Steve. As Steve indicated, the ordinance before you would authorize the issuance of bonds at a principal amount not to exceed $32 million. One of the key considerations for you is that in Section 4A on page 2, it's stated that the bonds and the interest thereon do not and shall never constitute an indebtedness of or a charge against the general credit or taxing power of the city, but shall be special and limited obligations of the city payable solely from revenues and other amounts derived from the financing agreements. So there is no liability here associated with respect to the city in connection with the issuance of the bonds. The reason that we are before you is that the United States Congress has enacted legislation which creates certain categories for which tax-exempt bonds can be issued. One of those categories is solid waste disposal facilities. So Purolix is that type of company. Not every entity that engages in a project can go out and have tax-exempt bonds issued to finance it. These tax-exempt bonds are called such because the interest on the bonds are excludable from the gross income of the holders of those bonds. As a result, investors of those bonds will accept lower interest rates than they otherwise would in the absence of that exemption. So when a company can take advantage of that, they will. And so one of the hurdles that there is in federal law is that you need an issuer, a political subdivision, to issue those bonds. And that issuer here in the state of Indiana can either be the Indiana Finance Authority for statewide or through the Economic Development Commissions, cities, towns, and counties that have created those, depending on where the project is located. Due in large part to the cooperation of Steve Witt, the Economic Development Corporation, and the city, Tom has chosen to go through the city to be this conduit issuer. So the city will be the issuer of these bonds under this ordinance, and it will use the proceeds to loan to Tom's company through a loan agreement between the city and Tom's company. Another document that you will be entering into, which is authorized in this ordinance, is a trust indenture. and that is a contract between the city and a bond trustee, which will be the document which authorizes the issuance of the bonds to the investors, the bondholders. That bond trustee represents the interests of the bondholders. And under that trust indenture, the sole source of payment for those bondholders, in part, from the city's perspective, are the loan payments to be made by Tom's company to the city, which you assign to the bond trustee. So that's the structure that you have here that you're basically authorizing. Again, I want to emphasize that there's no liability for the city here in connection with the issuance of these bonds. The bondholders know that the sole source of payment is the loan payments to be made by Tom's company to the city, which is assigned to the bond trustee. So in here, there are various parameters for the bonds, and you see that in Section 4. Maximum interest rate of 10% on the bonds. Of course, we're hoping to do much better than that. A maximum maturity of December 31st, 2039, about 20 to 22 years going out. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have in connection with this ordinance or this financing at this time.
Is there anybody from the public that'd like to speak on Special Ordinance 11, 2017? Council? Councilman
Where's your
Morris?
corporate headquarters at?
Our corporate headquarters is in Seattle,
Washington, Yeah, thank you.
Councilman Elliott?
Exactly where is the location?
Sorry, it's 4150 Steelton Avenue, Fort Harris Industrial Park.
Something.
You're driving out of Steelton Avenue before you go up the hill. It's on the left there before you cross the tracks.
Thank you.
I had a couple questions, and you tried to dummy that down as good as you can, but I still got a couple more. With regards to the bonding, is the city's financial situation going to be impacted on you selling those bonds? Since we're the go-through?
You know, we will not have an impact on the city's finances. If you're asking the opposite question, whether the city's finances might impact the sale of the bonds, the answer is no, because they don't look to the creditworthiness of the city, whether it be positive or negative. They just look solely to the creditworthiness of the company and the security that is provided to the bonds. So separately, for instance, the bondholders will also have a mortgage on Tom's company's property, but that's not a document that the city enters into. It's a document that the trustee enters into with Tom's company, and that's additional security for the bonds. So the answer is no, not at all.
Okay. And then, Steve, this is probably towards you. Are there any infrastructure needs that need to be done for this project to move forward?
One of the things that we've discussed with Tom is the property is served by an existing rail siding that's going to require some upgrade that's still undefined. And that's why in our discussions last month when we talked about our various redevelopment accounts and, you know, what may be available and what may not, I said, you know, we need to not touch the Fort Harrison Business Park TIF bond money because we do have an upcoming project where we hope to use those funds to help make rail improvements, and this is that project.
So there's no, you'll be able to deal with that, our agreement that we did on Tuesday regarding the redevelopment fund, you'll still be able to do the project?
Well, the entire scope of the project is undefined as far as the rail. We haven't even looked at it from an engineering standpoint, but we have existing monies in that account, and then tax monies that Pillar X will be paying over time will help with that. So we'll have some discussion with Ice Miller and so on in regard to how to fund that, but we don't know exactly what the cost will be. But based on our experience in the industrial park, I think the monies we already have are in the ballpark of what we need. We just don't know for sure yet.
Okay. And then I've had a few phone calls regarding the environmental impact. People are worried that there's going to be smokestacks that have burned rubber going through there, what kind of environmental impact will this have on the community?
Well, I'll defer to Tom on that, but I can tell you this is a very high-tech German process, and I've been trying to think of a good analogy. Having tires laying around on this site would be akin to McDonald's grazing cattle at one of their restaurants. It's just, as Tom said, they purchased shredded rubber that will come in. It's a pyrolysis process, I believe, so it's heat and pressure and things like that. There's no burning of tires, there's no storage of tires, there's nothing of that nature, and Tom, I'll defer to you to.
Thank you for the question. So it is a very clean, high-tech process. The process itself that we're using is from Germany. So we have the plant in Germany. We also have a plant in Oregon. Both of those are placed with very strict environmental requirements. It's an enclosed, oxygen-free process, so it's not burning of tires. It's basically thermally breaking down the tire rubber. We're going through the Indiana Department of Environmental Management to get the environmental permits for the operations. So there will be, there's no odor associated with the plant, and it will be fully permitted by the state.
Well, if you're making Oregon happy with environmental stuff, I'm sure you're okay. I appreciate it. Anybody else, Councilman Azar?
So with this plant, you would have 3 total?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilman Morris?
And what kind of byproduct after you do this? I mean,
Sure. There are 3 products that come out of the tire rubber. One, our main product is a product called carbon black. Carbon black is used in the manufacture of new tire and new rubbers, as well as in black plastic. The other product is essentially a diesel fuel that is derived from the tire rubber that gets shipped to typically an oil refinery for use as a raw material. And the last byproduct is gas, non-condensable gas, that can be used for energy content. Currently, at this plant, that will be combusted on site, but we are looking at using that energy. And then the last one is the steel that comes out of the steel belted radials from tires. That will get recycled as well.
I see. Thank you. I yield.
Councilman
Just a quick comment. Welcome to Terre Haute. We're glad.
Yeah.
Really excited about you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Special Ordinance 12, 2017, rezoning of property located at 3073 North 16th Street. Area Planning gave a favorable recommendation with a proposed amendment. The petitioner is coming up, and while he is, I'll explain what we were just discussing. There was a proposed amendment, but unfortunately it's not prepared yet, so he will have that to the clerk's office by Monday, and I will send it to all of you. It's to include the language of a planned development, that a hardship exists, that it has to materialize within 6 months, and it has to be reported in 90 days, and it's recorded. The area planning did act on it as if it was a planned development.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking the time to hear me, and I definitely understand now why there's a place there for the name of the attorney you hired, because if it had been for Michelle, I think I would have jumped into traffic over trying to get this done. Just in a nutshell, the Marine Corps, I'm representing the Marine Corps League. We have owned this property for a number of years, I think well over 20 years. It's a garage warehouse. It's very underutilized. So I came up with the brilliant plan that we could rent a portion of it out and generate some additional income. And then in the course of that, I discovered it was zoned R1, so we were trying to do the right thing and make sure it was properly zoned and make sure that our neighbors were all happy and everything. And that's basically all we're trying to do. We're going to continue using it exactly as it has been used for approximately the last 20 years, but we're just trying to make sure that we're doing it in a legal and proper and responsible fashion.
Mr. President, I would like to also mention it will be an R1 plan development, so that is a residential area, and if something would happen and they would not use it in the same methods, then it would revert back to a single-family residence.
Thank you, Michelle. Anybody from the public that'd like to speak on Special Ordinance 12, 2017? Council? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next order of business, please.
Resolution 5, 2017, designating an area commonly identified as 3701 North Fruit Ridge Avenue, Terre Haute, Indiana, as an economic revitalization area for the purpose of a 10-year personal property tax abatement and Passat Corporation for adoption, and you will have a proposed amendment.
Good evening. I'm Heidi Slinkard with the Wilkinson Law Firm for Ampeset, which I'm sure you all are aware is a manufacturer of plastic concentrates and additives in the north end of town on North Fruit Ridge. They've been in the area for 44 years now, and this resolution is a request for a 10-year personal property tax abatement for new equipment that they'd like to purchase for a new production line. The area that we're asking for you to identify as an economic revitalization area is its current location on North Fruit Ridge. They have facilities there right now, but we're just asking for the personal property tax abatement for the new equipment. So nothing as far as the real estate and the real property or anything that's already existing there. So whatever taxes you're getting already, you would still receive. We're just asking for the abatement on the new equipment. The economic revitalization area criteria for new equipment includes facilities that are susceptible to becoming technologically or economically obsolete, and this facility is in that category. The location has been operational since the 70s. They've had some new buildings and equipment or production lines installed in the 90s. But basically, it was a flagship facility for the United States early on, and it's kind of a dinosaur now. It needs updated. It has old production lines, and it's not operating financially, economically in a feasible or functional manner, or at least as it could be with modernization of new equipment. The equipment is estimated to cost $3.8 million, which is no small investment. It's about 20% of the current investment that they have in our community. So they're interested in continuing here if they can update the facility. Right now, Ampeset employs 181 people here locally. It's almost $11 million in salaries here annually. So with the additional equipment that they hope to be able to purchase with this tax abatement, they could not only retain those jobs because it would increase productivity at the facility, and they wouldn't need to look at making adjustments in that respect, but also it'll increase the annual salary by about $300,000 for the facility. They're going to add at least 6 new jobs with respect to this new line, if they're able to do this. And also with the increases in productivity, they think that there's a potential that they could add another shift if it works out well. So what we've placed in the petition is just what they're sure they can do, which is the 6 new positions, $50,000 a year jobs, and then the retention of 181 current jobs with $11 million in annual salaries for our community. So as you all are aware, that I constantly get questions in the community about it. You know, the tax abatements are not a situation where the city is writing a check and handing it to a corporation like some people would have the public believe. This is instead just a request to phase in the personal property taxes that would be assessed on the increased value of the personal property with the investment in this new equipment in our city. So the way that the numbers work out, it's about 2/3 versus 1/3 difference in the property taxes. So you still get the taxes you are used to getting, and then you get some additional, just not 100%. And I know you guys know how that works, and so if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Also, there will be an amendment, sorry.
I'm just going to remind her, the amendment is to the legal description?
Yes, there's an amendment to the legal description to have the full legal description. It was going from about this big to this big. And then also, I omitted one of the tax chart breakdown for taxes abated versus paid in the petition, and needed to update it because there was a couple of the columns were missing. So I have a copy of that. It's not finalized yet. I can share it with you if you'd like to see it. But it works out to, and I will of course file it as an amendment. But
Just real quick, the statutes require the council to approve a schedule of deductions, So the last couple of years, we just put it in the beginning resolution. It is an estimate of the abatement amounts for each year.
And we included it in the application, or in the petition, but omitted it from the resolution. So I'm just going to correct both of them. So essentially, the estimate for the new, the personal property tax that would be assessed on the new equipment only, it would be an increased tax burden of $310,000, and with this scaled-in abatement period for over 10 years, it would 210 of it would be abated, leaving $99,000 paid. So still an increase in $99,000 worth of tax revenue, new equipment. It streamlines the facility and operations, hopefully makes it more productive. We know it'll add 6 more jobs and $300,000 more salary, and it'll assist them in keeping 181 jobs that are already there that are at risk to be, shifted or downsized because of facilities in other states and other countries, for that matter, that are more that have been modernized over time, and so the production costs are lower, and of course it makes it cheaper to produce materials and more profitable for the company.
Is there anybody from the public that'd like to speak on Resolution 5, 2017?
Steve Webb, Economic Development Corporation, et cetera. The only thing I would add, Heidi and I were chatting before the meeting, and when we talk about economic development, we think about business attraction and business retention, but oftentimes what we don't think about are the companies that we already have are constantly bombarded about being enticed to go to other communities in other states. And so as a community, and as an economic development corporation, we're always trying to put our best foot forward. And Ampersand is what I would consider one of our crown jewel manufacturers. And I think this is a great opportunity for our community. As Heidi said, it may lead to even more opportunity down the road. And I just wanted to add that thought.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Anyone else? Council?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved that we adjourn by Councilman Azar, second by Councilwoman Crossen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.